Some folding variants. The first variant would be working on one leg at a time. You may find that one side is different than the other side, so always doing it bilaterally with two legs at the same time might not be the most effective way of working on imbalances. So to do a single leg good morning, just step one foot out, and if you step it out at an angle about 45, it's going to be easier to pitch forward and hinge than if you bring it straight forward. Just give you a little bit more hip space and a little more stability for reaching toward it. This is a traditional way of doing it. In Kung Fu we called it mat gert, which is elbow to toe, and I'll show you what that means here in a second. But if we do this as a good morning with spine long and straight, we can use all of those same cues that we use in a good morning to keep my leg long. It doesn't have to be locked, but my leg does have to be long. Actively using strength to pull myself down into my end ranges and do those single leg style. Now the single leg fold is where the elbow to toe comes into play. Here, as I relax my body, now I can start using my arm as a guide towards my toe. I wouldn't make that a goal for everybody to be able to put your elbow to your toe, same side or opposite side, but you can use that as a trajectory for getting deeper. There are also folds from the seated position. These are particularly useful for passive work when you're working on releasing tension or relaxing at the end of a day, or while in front of a screen for hanging out on the ground. I wouldn't rely on these as the primary tool for getting more range, because they're more about releasing tension, not about building strength through ranges. But a seated fold can be a nice way of relaxing, a nice way of stretching for recovery, the kinds of things that we would do at the end of a session after the workout or after the active range work, some simple passive ranges. Here I'm trying to reach with a long spine and again putting the length in the back. So you have seated fold and single leg seated folds. The last variant that we'll talk about here for folding is a shoulder stand fold. So commonly known as a plow position, but it's a shoulder stand reaching with my legs overhead into that fold. So here I need to have a good shoulder stand. If I'm crushing into my head and my neck in order to accomplish that, then it's not an appropriate place to work on your folding range. I would again treat this as more of a passive range exercise, not something where I'm actively trying to force and shove myself into. Because if I can't perform the owl test in this position of being able to turn my head easily side to side, then I probably have too much load in my in the back of my head, and which means too much load on my cervical spine for it to be useful. But it is a nice option if you have a shoulder stand and as part of working on integrating folding with other movements like rolling and being on the ground.